Thank you very much. Mr. Federal Chancellor, a year ago in the election campaign, you were very critical of wind energy. You said it was a transitional technology. Wind turbines could perhaps be rebuilt in the future. You also said that wind turbines were ugly. Did you change your opinion on this? And do you see investments in wind energy today as permanent investments? And a question for you three on the topic of the USA. To what extent did you talk about how things should proceed in the negotiations on Greenland? The USA is obviously calling for new military bases in a sovereign area in Greenland. Is that an option for you at all? And then I would like to know how you think about the events in Minnesota. There are many Europeans who are shocked by what happened there. 2 American citizens were killed there. Does that worry you? I'll start with the last aspect. I find it indeed worrying. What news did we get from the USA in the last few days? And it is obviously always a region or a city that is affected. I assume that the American authorities are now really investigating whether it was necessary to shoot here, whether there really was a threat to the officials involved. I have to say that this extent of violence in the USA is worrying, so to speak. As far as Greenland is concerned, the Americans have drastically reduced their troop strength in Greenland in recent years. There were once more than 30,000 American soldiers stationed on Greenland. Today there are still around 200. The Americans have, if I see it correctly, 2 large military bases in Greenland, which have been secured accordingly since a contract from 1951. I see here a common effort as necessary to better protect the North. And I can perhaps say that from the conversations this morning. The Norwegian Prime Minister has pointed out in detail how strongly the NATO and the European part of the NATO already protect the north of Europe, and how close the cooperation between the armed forces and the intelligence services of the Europeans and the Americans is. So there is no lack of knowledge on the European side. There is a joint action mission for NATO, and the Americans count on that as well as the Europeans. And the whole thing, as we have been working together in NATO for 75 years, with full respect for the territorial sovereignty and integrity of the participating countries. As far as wind energy is concerned, I have always differentiated between wind on land and wind at sea. I come from an electorate where the expansion of wind energy is very controversial, because it also greatly changes the landscape. We are trying to channel that. But on the sea, there is another great advantage. There is a much higher number of full load hours, which are guaranteed only due to the weather conditions, the wind conditions there. And of course, Mr. Fischer, the wind energy is like everything we have in terms of wind generation or energy generation capacity. We also have a transition technology here that will accompany us for 10 years, 20 years, maybe 30 years. I am sitting, and you know that we have also agreed in the coalition agreement that Germany will take the first fusion reactor in the world to the grid. That can take another 10 years. That can take 20 years. But if we are able to generate fusion energy, then electricity will become a commodity that is available in the smallest single-cent range, and then it will probably no longer need other energy generation methods in this range. But that is future music, that we will probably only experience from the Ruhestand. At least me, maybe you too. By the way, not Danish red lines, it's European red lines. It should be global red lines, respect for sovereign states, serenity. And what we have discussed in more details today is like what the Chancellor just said about NATO. We have asked NATO for quite some time to be permanently present in the Arctic region and in the high north, including Greenland. Until now, we haven't had a permanent deployment of NATO soldiers in Greenland. But as you probably know, the Greenlandic government and the Danish government have asked NATO to be permanently present.
Yeah, I can add some words about the question about Greenland, and I'm very grateful because also today all my colleagues have underlined their strong support to the Kingdom of Denmark and to Greenland, respecting, of course, our red lines, who are, by the way, not Danish red lines, it's European red lines. It should be global red lines, respect for sovereign states, serenity. And what we have discussed in more details today is like what the Chancellor just said about NATO. We have asked NATO for quite some time to be permanent present in the Arctic region and in the High North, including Greenland. Until now, we haven't had a permanent deployment of NATO soldiers in Greenland, but as you probably know, the Greenlandic government and the Danish government have asked NATO to be permanent present. My hope is that we will have something you can almost like copying Baltic sentry to the Arctic region. I think it will be very important not only for the northern flank of NATO, but also geopolitical, a very, very strong signal to Russia and China. So this is what we are working for, and at the same time we have bilateral talks with the US on issues concerning US and the Kingdom of Denmark.
Prime Minister De Vivo, also.
I have nothing particularly to add. We hope that we can keep cooperating under the NATO flag, and I don't think that any security challenges posed on Greenland demand other solutions than the NATO solution, and we would be glad and honored to be able to participate in an Arctic sentry operation.